What's going on, everybody? Hope you had a nice weekend. And I just thought it might be a good idea to do a little bit more of this market stuff because I think we've got something looming here, something real looming, and the market's starting to prove it. So we talked about last week how this area right here was really important in terms of the way the market came at this. And we had the sellers. Buyers tried a little bit, sellers crushed it. We've got some pretty big volatility and sellers. And then this is where we are right now. This is a big deal. When you have a gap down like this, it is a big deal. This isn't just a little gap either. This is a big boy gap. And what that means is anybody that was sitting right here with a position just got trapped. And you see a gap or a huge volatility move like this when there's fear and there's real reason to be concerned. So as far as I can see at this point, this is making the real demonstrative statement that the market wants to take that move from here down to our 3,200 line, which we talked about last week. And that 3,200-ish area right here is the end of the world area. I don't know what falls under that at this point. So this gap down is a big deal. On the fundamental perspective as to what to consider is, there's a couple things that caught my attention. We did the chart last week on the real estate market, which I think I still have here, right? So we had this big engulfing candle here, which is a lot of volatility. And the next move down is to hit this trend line on the real estate end. So there's that factor. Then we also had there's an unfolding situation in China right now with Evergrande, which is the largest home builder in China. Maybe the world, I'm not sure, but they're the 122nd largest company in the world, and they're folding, which means that's a huge hit on the housing market. And I have that reflects this gap down because this gap down is on the real time hours. And this would have been the Asian market just getting smashed. That's what that gap would have been if I filled those candles in, which makes sense. So you have that. And then you also have another strange underlying situation that was kind of casually put out on Yahoo last week. I was like scrolling through Yahoo and I saw that Vladimir Putin has gone into isolation. He said there's a lot of quote unquote sick people around him, which I know is just an super odd thing to have a world leader who's a very tough world leader go into isolation. That's interesting. So there are definitely some things sitting around that need to be considered at this point. And it's adding up to, are we coming down into that 3,200 area? Because again, that 3,200 area, 32,000 area, underneath that, I don't have a picture, but underneath that I should get a picture of that. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know what happens under there. Just be aware that there should be some news coming out. And Thursday is actually when that particular Evergrande company is going to have to come due on a very large bit of their debt. And if they default, that's a major issue if they go ahead and default to their creditors, because my partner just sent me an article this morning on them that said they claim $300 billion in debt or whatever it was, but there's a number looming that's 1.5 trillion in debt, and we're looking at a potential bailout from China. And when things like this happen, it's usually like what you hear on the surface gets amplified by so much more. So there's going to be skeletons in the closet. There's going to be things to consider and things to look out for. So unless they raise a ton of money by Thursday, this market could get crazy. I think the big thing that I'm looking for at this point, and I'll have to go back to COVID, but if we get like 1,000-point days, a couple 1,000-point days, what I mean by 1,000-point days is like 1,000 from top to bottom, from open to close. If we get a couple of those before any real news breaks, that is like huge red flag to consider in terms of, we're going for this. We're going for this big move down. That's usually the kind of stuff you see right before a crash or a major correction. So if we look for a couple 1,000-point days, if they start showing up, be ready. So good luck out there. And this week's going to be interesting, to say the very least.